Chapter 6. Being invisible was a little scary. Richard couldn't see or feel himself, so he couldn't tell where he began or ended. As he walked into Pizza World, he moved his arms and legs very slowly. He was hoping he wouldn't bump into anything, but even though he was really careful, he did. When he passed a table of four teenage girls, he knocked over all their empty soda cups. Ice cubes and paper cups went flying. The girls screamed. Richard froze. Keep going. Eric's voice boomed inside Richard's head. Have you ever been invisible before? Are you kidding? Answered Richard. I'm human. We can't do that. Eric gave a tiny snort. Well, he said. Well, then, he said. Just sit down quietly. Try not to move around a lot. At least no one knows that we are here. The drain is too busy with his food. Dorf and Henry were sitting at the table, covered with pizza pies and soft drinks. Richard held his breath. Then he sat down quietly beside Henry. He looked at Richard as if the pizzas were the house special, death by pizza. They had peas, carrots, onions, cheese, and wheat germ on them. Death by pizzas were famous in the mall. No one had ever died from eating one, but people had come close. Just before the drains divide, they build up their power by eating a lot, said Eric. Richard's heart sank. There are 7 pizzas on the table. Hey, these look really good. Dorf licked his lips. And isn't it great being here without that little nerd, Richard? Yeah, it's great, Dorf, said Henry in a spaced out voice. Richard felt like giving Dorf an invisible punch. Maybe, maybe Dorf will die from the pizza, he said to Eric. No, said Eric. The pizza will simply help him divide faster. Dorf picked up a glass shaker of red hot pepper flakes and poured it all over one of the pizzas. He breathed in clouds of red dust. A smile broke out over his face. Then he reached over an empty table and grabbed another glass shaker. He poured pepper flakes over the second pizza. Suddenly, Dorf sprang up. He went from table to table, picking up all the pepper shakers. When his arms were full, he came back and sat down. He lined all the shakers up in front of him. Henry looked puzzled. What are you doing, Dorf? He asked. Eating, Dorf said. Dorf turned his widest smile on Henry. I'm hungrier than I thought. One by one, he emptied all the shakers on the pizza. Henry gulped and turned green. What's in the bottles? Eric asked Richard. Red hot pepper flakes, the hottest stuff in the world. I can't believe he can eat all of that and not explode. That is it, shouted Eric. Red pepper! I knew I would remember. That is the weapon. Great! Richard watched Dorf closely. He could hardly wait to see what the pepper flakes would do. But nothing happened. Dorf wasn't dying. He wasn't even looking sick. He was enjoying himself. He devoured slice after slice of pizza, eating faster and faster. Henry nibbled on the edge of a piece. Then he ran, gasping for water. Dorf paid no attention. He ate and ate. His fair skin turned pink. His blue eyes flashed purple. A terrible greedy smile spread over his face, which was now covered with cheese and bits of carrot. How come it's not working, Eric? Asked Richard. I mean, if it's the weapon, should he be getting weak or something? Then Richard had an awful thought. What if Eric is wrong? What if the pepper flakes didn't work against Dorf? I am not wrong, snapped Eric. Too late. Richard remembered that Eric could hear his thoughts. It is all coming back to me now. The weapon is pepper flakes. Drains cannot resist it. Once they start eating it, they cannot stop. And then they explode. Then how come he's so happy? Asked Richard. If anything, Dorf looked stronger now than before. If he were just eating pepper flakes, he would indeed die soon, said Eric. But he is also eating pizza, and that is giving him strength. What can we do? Asked Richard. We must feed him pepper flakes, and only pepper flakes, said Eric. Enough to destroy him, and we must work quickly. Okay, I'll give it to him, said Richard. Tomorrow at school. Very good, said Eric. By the time Henry came back, Dorf was on his last slice of pizza. His face was bright red. Henry was staring at his empty cup. He looked sick. I don't feel so good, he said. Have another slice, said Dorf. Can we go home now? I think I'd better lie down. I am almost finished. I feel really great. There's nothing like pizza to get your blood flowing, shouted Dorf. How about running around the mall a few times? Maybe later, mumbled Henry. Then he jumped up and ran off to the bathroom. We had better go, said Eric. We are going to become visible again in about a minute. Richard got up very carefully. Very carefully, he made his way around the chairs and tables. He opened the front door and slid out of Pizza World. Then he headed back to the mutant splendor. No one would notice if a kid and a tiny alien materialized there. They'd think it was some new game or promotion or something. And that is exactly what happened. Chapter 7. The next morning, Richard was up early. Well, I guess today we have to save the universe, he said nervously. Eric was curled up in an orange frisbee. He yawned and stretched. It's not the universe, it's just your little home planet, he answered. I resent that, said Richard. He pulled his socks over his bandaged feet. If it was so small and unimportant, then why are you here? Richard's head was pounding. Was that part melting too? In any case, he was sick of Eric acting like he was such a know it all. All right. Your planet is important. If the drains take over Earth, who knows what they will do next? But it is bad luck to brag, and worse manners. Your mother should have taught you that. She tried, said Richard. He went into the closet and pulled out a 5 pound box of pepper flakes. He felt so weak it was hard to lift the box. He had spent $17.52 on it, his life savings. I sure hope this works, he said. Do you think 5 pounds is enough? It better be. Dorf will divide in exactly 3 hours and 14 minutes. Then it is bye bye biosphere. Richard shuddered. I guess we'd better hurry, he said. There's no place else to go if we mess up, is there? Negatory, my friend, said Eric. Richard, called Mrs. Bickerstaff. Time to get up. Richard put Eric in his shirt pocket. He zipped the box of pepper flakes into his backpack. Then he walked into the kitchen. His mother, in her bathrobe, was opening and closing all the cabinets. Where did my tea bags go? She said. I could swear they were here yesterday. Gee, Mom, I don't know, said Richard. He and Eric had cleaned up the kitchen that afternoon before in a big hurry. They probably should have been more careful. You're up early, said his mother. How come? Something special going on at school? No, I just felt like getting an early start, said Richard. Good for you. Would you like some breakfast? Some more of that new, nice cereal? No, Richard croaked. He had never wanted to see another box of Alien Crisp in his life. Richard's mother peered at him. Are you all right, honey? She asked. You look pale. For a second, Richard felt like a kid again. He wished he could really tell his mother everything. I'm fine, Mom, he said, and he sat down at the table. Really? Well, at least have a good breakfast, said his mother. She smoothed back his hair. How about an egg? Sure, said Richard. To his mother's surprise, he ate everything on his plate. Then he kissed her on the cheek and left to wait for the school bus right on time. Richard was glad Henry wasn't on the bus. If he saw Henry, he wasn't sure he could keep quiet about Dorf, and he knew that saying anything would ruin Eric's mission. Then again, it was pretty clear that Henry was under Dorf's control. He probably wouldn't believe me if I did tell him, thought Richard. He walked into the school and stood near the boys' bathroom. A second later, Dorf and Henry came walking down the hall. They were both wearing red cowboy shirts and string ties. Dorf was talking, and Henry was nodding at everything he said, as usual. Remember, do not look at the dwarf's teeth when smiling, he said Eric, and step back after you give him the flicks. Drains can get violent before they explode. Richard got hot, then cold, then slightly dizzy. Don't be afraid, said Eric. I'm not afraid, I'm terrified, said Richard. But even as he said it, he was stepping away from the wall. He stood in front of Dorf and Henry. Hi, you guys, he said. Hi, Richard, said Dorf. How are you doing? You don't look so good, buddy. Then he smiled one of his amazing smiles right at Richard. Just in time, Richard remembered to look away. Then he said, I was hoping I'd run into you before class, Dorf. I've got something I think you'll really like. Come on in here, I'll show you. He led them into the boys' bathroom, which was pretty empty. And then he set his backpack down. It took all his strength to pull out the box of pepper flakes. Here, this is for you, Richard told Dorf. He opened the box. Want some? Dorf looked at the pepper flakes. Suddenly, his face was wet with sweat. He smiled a hungry smile. His breath came fast and hard, and his eyes gleamed. His face turned bright pink. He grabbed the box away from Richard. Then he poured a heap of pepper flakes into his hand. He stuffed it into his mouth as if he were eating popcorn. Only he didn't chew it. He simply swallowed it. Then he swallowed another handful and another. Dorf, what are you doing? Cried Henry. Dorf ignored him. His eyes turned bright purple. More, he gasped, then poured the pepper flakes down his throat. More! The snaps on the cowboy shirt popped open. His chest was bright red. It was starting to steam. Henry jumped away. So did Richard. Now Dorf's eyes were bulging. He finished off the box and his skin went from red to purple. Then his hair started burning. It smelled horrible. Yikes, said Richard. He grabbed Henry. They backed away toward the door. Dorf began bubbling and popping. His clothes fell to the floor in a smoking heap. He stopped looking like a boy and he started looking like a blob of live silly putty. Then he sprouted tentacles. There were dozens of them. They thrashed on the floor, making a loud hissing sound. Richard felt something on his neck. He jumped. It was only Eric. He had climbed on Richard's shoulder to watch. A horrible cry filled the bathroom. You got me! Screamed Dorf. 2 more hours and I would have started dividing. My clones would have been all over your planet like ants on a candy bar. And now your pathetic earthlings would have been our slaves. His tentacles flopped on the white floor. I hate to lose, Dorf wailed at Richard. I hope you flunk math and history. I hope you fail science and art and social studies and English and gym. Then he blew